Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you would mind hitting the like button before we get going here, that helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate it. I also love it when people leave comments, questions about the video, constructive criticism. If you want to tell me how you do things or ideas for videos, those are all nice things to hear, and so feel free to leave one. So this is maybe the fourth or the fifth video I've done on making different bales, and I like doing these because one of the things that when I first started doing this, I used the same bale over and over again, and I found over time that you can really change up the look or jazz it up if you do something more interesting with some of the findings on the piece. So same way when I'm doing bracelets, I try and incorporate the clasp into the design so it looks just like the rest of the design. Stuff like that, I think, moves your jewelry from something just kind of basic to something more interesting. So I'm going to show 5 different kinds of bales you could try. These are different and might be suitable for a particular style you have on a piece you're making, and hopefully you'll find them useful. Before we get started, I'd like to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I think they're the best, and I appreciate not only their financial support, but the incredible community that they've built over there. I love seeing them interacting with each other and asking each other questions. I learn a lot from them almost every time I visit over there, so I want them to know that I appreciate how they've made it over there, so thanks. So my YouTube subscribers, I think we just passed 17,700, which is amazing. When I started this, I never thought that I would have that big of a following, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it, and the comments you leave are so nice, and it makes me feel really good to know that people are finding some use in these things. So thanks for that. Thank you also for the contributions, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. So, all right, well, let's get started on this 5 different bales. This is one of my design idea books that you can get on my merch store if you're interested. This particular one has a convenient conversion chart on the back. It's got fractions of an inch to decimals, and then you can take it over to millimeters over here, which I find super useful since I usually do millimeters anymore. There's a number of different designs with some different charts on the back. Check those out. So I draw out my sketches in these. Sometimes I get the book upside down, but it's a good way to keep track of all my projects, and I really like them, so I find them handy. Today we're going to do 5 different bale types, and I've never really made anything exactly like any of these, so it'll be kind of fun. I did pre-make a lot of the components to save time since we're doing 5 different things, so we'll just kind of assemble them. This first one's kind of Art Deco-y. I'm going to use some 8 gauge half round, which is 3.25 millimeters for the central thing, tapered down to one side. Then there will be a piece of 14 gauge round and then a piece of 18 gauge round to kind of create those kind of classic Art Deco-y kind of lines. On the bottom here I'm going to put a little kind of elongated loop, and on the back we're going to have a hidden bale that just kind of is a inside out piece of 8 gauge half round wire, so the rounded side is on the inside. The second thing is going to be kind of a sleek modern looking one. It's made out of 22 gauge sheet with a hole cut into it. I'm going to do an oval hole, and then I'm going to put a little silver ball that I've created in there, and that'll be soldered to the back piece, which is going to be a flat piece of 22 gauge sheet. The front piece is going to be domed a little bit like that. So the chain will go through the top part here, and you put a loop through here to hang your pendant from, or some other type of connection there. Third, I've never done one like this, but I was going to make 2 kind of cups made out of silver discs, so they're concave, and I'm going to solder them back to back, and I'm going to put a bar on the top and the bottom, so the chain will go around one, and on the bottom here you'd hang a loop where you would hook your pendant to. So we'll see how that works. I reticulated the front side of this. If you're interested in reticulation, I did a video a long time ago, and I'll put a link up there for you to show you how to do it. Let's see, the fourth one. This one, I thought of this one because I was just doing this foxtail chain the other day, and you have to make these links that are shaped like this. And I thought you could make a really kind of a simple bail like that, and it might look pretty cool, depending upon the design of the pendant that you're doing. So we're going to use a piece of 12 gauge square wire that I've flattened out to about, probably about a millimeter thick now. 12 gauge is normally 2.01 millimeters, so I got it about half as thick and probably a little wider because I rolled it through the rolling mill. So we'll make that. I made it into a loop already, and then we'll just kind of bend it into that saddle shape. Finally, I've done tube bails a lot over my time, but I've never done one which had a bigger tube bail and a small tube bail on the bottom. I thought about putting a piece of half round in the middle, but I thought, let's just keep it consistent all the way across the board. And so I made 3 different tubes of different sizes. This one's about 5 millimeters, 4 millimeters, and 3 millimeters in diameter. And the top 2 I made out of 22 gauge sheet, which is slightly thicker. It's 0.66 millimeters, I think. And the middle one is also 22. And then the bottom one, because it started to get kind of small, I made it out of 26, which is 0.41 millimeters, I believe. So the bottom one is 26. I probably should write that on there for posterity. But okay, so we'll start with this one though, and really to start with we need to solder the components together. So here's the piece that I made for the center. This was originally 8 gauge half round, which it still is up here kind of, but I tapered it gradually with my file and then used my Dremel to kind of clean it up a bit. So we're going to do that, and then on either side a piece of 14 gauge round like this. Solder those on there, and then I have a piece of 18 gauge round. Try to get those lined up nicely. So we'll solder it like that. I'm going to put a little loop on the bottom of this one, and then we have this half round 8 gauge that I curved into kind of a U shape. That'll be the bail on the back. So to start with though, let's solder these. I think I'm going to solder these 2 together first. These 2. And then we'll add these to the middle one. So okay, let's cut a little. I use a hard silver sheet solder for most everything, and I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with the dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It just draws in atmospheric air through there to mix with the gas. It's a great torch. I use a #1 tip on that, and that's pretty much the questions people generally ask me about my setup here. If you have any other ones, feel free to ask. That's fine. Also, if you have any kind of cool bail designs you want to tell me about, I always like hearing about those kind of ideas. So if you've never seen pick soldering is super useful. I'll put a link up here if you want to see a video about it. I found that it made it so much easier for me to solder little components together. Just make things a little bit easier. I think you'll find the same once you kind of practice it and get the hang of it. Enough of that. You know what I think I'm going to do? I don't think it's angled in far enough. So I'm actually going to taper these 14 gauge wires a little bit at the top too. So I'll be right back. I'm just going to file those a little bit, and I think it'll look more Art Deco-y if we angle it inwards a little bit more. Okay, I got them tapered down a little bit more like that. I think that looks a little more Art Deco now. I have a little jump ring made out of 18 gauge that I'm going to cut a portion out of to make a loop on there. So let's solder these together now. Hopefully it'll... look more tapered. I guess I could, if I wanted it to be more tapered in the middle, I could have used a thicker half-round wire, like a 6 gauge. So on this piece of 18 gauge wire that I made a loop out of, let's cut about a kind of a half circle out of here. Just going to angle these in slightly so that it meets up more nicely with the bottom of that. We'll just solder that on there, and then we'll add this back piece. I don't think that'll be necessary, but that's going to be bale number 1. Let's see what's next up. So here we're going to have this sort of a piece, which I cut out. It was a, well, what did I decide? It's about 12 millimeters, I think. About 11, actually. And so this one's about the same width as that. And then I tapered it down, cut out an oval with my saw. And this is going to be the back plate. And I took some scrap and I made a little ball. We're just going to solder them on like this. And that should leave us a gap down here to run a way to connect it to your pendant and up here a chain slot. So we'll try and do that. More room up top and less room on the bottom is probably better. So about like that. We'll try and do that about right there. Oopsie. Actually, let's just sweat a little bit of solder on the on the back of the ball. For one like this, I wouldn't go much thinner than 22 probably. So I want to have some sturdiness as well. let's put a little solder on the back of this ball. Let's make sure that's about right. Too low. That'll work, I think. Now, let's put a little bit of solder on each edge of this. I think I got a seam down here, but I'm not sure about the top. I'm just going to add a little bit in here. Okay, let's cool that off and see how it turned out. I think we have a good seam, so we can just trim off the excess here probably. Alright, so we'll have room for a chain to go through up there, a delicate chain probably, and then a loop or something to go through there to connect your pendant to it. Okay, there's bail number 2. Next, we have our double disc one. So actually when I was reticulating it, it actually domed itself in the wrong direction. So we're going to have to grab a dapping block here. Let me find the other one. Here's the back one. So I'll try and gently dap that down. So I think the trick is going to be getting these to sit on top of each other nicely. I have a thought. What if we use some T-pins to kind of surround it? Supposing I can find about 4 of them. So what if I was to sweat a little bit of solder right there, and then position it on top of this with those in place. I think that'll probably kind of keep things in place. I guess we'll find out. That's pretty straight. Let's try and solder that and see what happens. I think it's a little crooked, but maybe not enough to bother with. When something's almost right is when I usually screw it up. I'm trying to fix it. Let's see if we can cut a piece of wire that fits right in there. There we go, about like that. So this is going to be tricky, I think. This one you may have to add to your tricky soldering list. We'll see. Okay, let's figure out straight down from that. So we cut another little tiny slice like that. Let's try it this way. Let's sweat the solder on this side this time. See if that works better. For science. So one will be for a chain to go through, and the other one will be for a loop to go through that connects to your pendant. So let's pickle that, and we'll put this reticulated side outwards. We'll see how it looks. Okay, number 4. We're going to have to make this into kind of a lozenge shape. And here's the solder joint right there, so I'm going to put that at the end. I'm just going to squeeze it down like this. If you want, even tap it down this way. Try to make this pretty consistent, at least. Let's bend this around a mandrel. Or actually, we could probably just do it around this if we want to. That's pretty hard to bend. Might have to anneal that a little bit. If you're new to this, annealing is where you soften the metal back again after it's been work hardened. So I was just pounding on it and bending it. It's probably pretty hard right now. So if you heat it up to kind of a reddish color like that, and let it cool off most of the way before you quench it, should soften it up a little bit. Sometimes you can use leverage to bend things like this. Alright, so then I think probably if I was going to use this, a couple of things, you could just run a chain through there like that, but I'd solder this closed, and then you can hook a loop over that. Let's go ahead and solder that just for giggles. Oh, by the way, if I haven't talked about it yet, I just released my 2024 ebook, which is a guide to all of the videos I published in 2024. It has a picture of the project, a picture of the sketch that I drew, a list of materials you need, what kind of difficulty level it is, and some notes I made about each project, including would I do it differently if I made it again? Did I run into any real problems? What can you do to, overcome those problems? Did I like the project? Did I not like the project? Those kinds of things, as well as a link right to the video. So seeing as I do 3 videos a week plus Patreon videos, there's well over 170 videos shown in that ebook. So if you're interested in that, you can download it right there. It's a great way to support the channel and a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. So. Number 5 is going to be our multiple tube bail. So I made them kind of to specs here. I went with the width of the sides. And this one will go right here. That. And then this one down here. And hopefully I can get them symmetrical and put the seam side to the back if I can figure out where it's at. But I think this will make kind of a simple and sort of fun bail. And the thing about these is if I had it slightly off or something, like one is a little bit to one side, I can probably file to get them to look symmetrical again, but I think that's pretty good actually. So again, your chain would go through the top one, and then you could, I guess you could hang two different things off of this. That might be kind of cool. Give you some options. So any of these kind of things, you could add a stone to them or some other variation. You could put borders of wire around the outsides of these. Whatever. Lots of choices, lots of fun ways to experiment. So I'll pickle these and then I'll polish them up and show you the final ones at the end. So I got them all polished up. Here's the first one that I did up here with the kind of Art Deco-y look to it. I like that one. This is the next one here. I need to give it a little buff up with a polishing cloth before I take some pictures. And there's a third one right here. Just look at it. It looks kind of like a little hourglass almost from the side. And then we have this kind of fold over one right here, which you would run a ring through there. And then finally we have this one here with the tubes. So yeah, I'm pleased with them. I think they came out pretty good and would add some variety to some of your pendants. There's of course multiple variations to each of these you could do. I kind of just made these up as I was going, sort of, and probably based on some others that I've seen over time. But yeah, be creative, have fun. Well, that was 5 different bales to spice up your pieces, and hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave, and I'd love it if you'd take a moment and check out my main channel page. I have 400, and it's probably getting close to 440 videos now. There's lots of content, lots of project ideas, different kinds of things like this video where I give you some finding tips or stuff like that. I try to do a number of different skill levels in my videos, so there'll be projects that are beginners, there's projects that are intermediate, and there's some that are a little bit more challenging. So visit that, come back, subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. Check out the video description down below where there's some important links. That ebook that I mentioned that I just put out, which details all of 2024's YouTube videos as well as the Patreon videos. Check that out, buy one of those. I think it's a useful way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. There's also a link to my sketchbooks, which I showed you at the beginning, which are nice ways to keep track of all of your projects, and so if you ever want to go back and revisit them, you'll know how to make them again without having to rack your brain. I use mine every time I do a project, so I think they're super useful. So get yourself one of those. And there's even a link to Patreon if you want to check out that community. It's a nice place with lots of cool people over there, so I'd love to have you join that as well. All right, well, thanks for coming. Take care. Happy silversmithing.